Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Alyssa Dignard, and I'm the executive chef of Hop Yard in Abioko here in Charlottetown. So today in the Meyer Kitchen, we're going to be making a festive oyster recipe. So we're going to be using our Redhead Select oysters from Morel. We're going to be making an oyster Rockefeller type dish with a stuffing flavored panko and a cranberry mignonette. So we're going to be using Prosecco, which is going to be really good for your holiday parties. And yeah, I guess we'll just get started on the mignonette first. So most people with the oysters are going to use just straight lemon, horseradish, hot sauce. But the mignonette is going to give you that really good acidic bite, especially for these oysters with all the fat from the cream and the cheese. So these are just frozen, chopped cranberries. And then we're going to use our white wine vinegar, some diced shallots, and then this is a Santa Margherita Prosecco. The Prosecco can totally be omitted if we didn't want any alcohol in there, but since it's Christmas, why not? A little bit of salt, and even though we want it really tart, the cranberries are going to be extra tart, so we're going to add a little bit of sugar to it. So 2 tablespoons of sugar. Give her a little stir. And then just black pepper. So once your oysters are all broiled and ready to go, a little scoop of this on top, and it's going to be a really balanced, perfect bite. So when it comes to the panko topping, we're going to get a little pan hot here. We're going to go in with a couple tablespoons of butter. A couple tablespoons of butter. And then while that melts up, we're basically just going to make like an herb infused butter. That's going to taste like stuffing, dressing, whatever you want to call it. So celery salt, a little bit of garlic powder. The key ingredient for that is going to be the savory, and that's going to make it taste just like your dressing. Garlic powder, onion powder, and then to make it taste extra like Christmas stuffing, I use a poultry seasoning, which gives it a little bit more stock flavor without adding any like actual meat to it. So once this gets all melted, we're going to add it to our panko breadcrumbs, and those are going to be the best breadcrumbs to use for this recipe. They just have a better crunch than like your regular Italian store-bought breadcrumb. You could very well use some day-old bread that you had at your house and blend it up that way. But personally, I would use the panko for that extra crunch, that texture that we really want in our oysters. So once your butter is all melted, we pour that right into our panko, and then you would give this guy a really good mix. And I wouldn't add any salt to this just because that celery salt and poultry seasoning is going to have a bunch of soda in it already. And then you have salty oyster, so I wouldn't season this one. It should be just fine the way it is. So once you mix all this up, throw it on a sheet pan or like a little cookie tray into the oven just until it's nice toasty brown. Give it a good stir. And once that's done, it comes out looking more like that. So it's toasted, it's extra crispy, and when you put it on the hot spinach, it's going to stay nice and crispy and you won't get all soggy topping. Now the cream spinach, we are going to, it's super simple. It's going to start off with more butter. And if you're worried about that burning at all, you can add a little bit of canola oil to it, bring up that temperature, and then you won't have to worry about burning your butter. So we'll let that butter melt, a little bit of shallot, and then we'll sweat that off. And I'll wait until my onions are a little bit cooked until I add that garlic, just so we don't risk burning it. So we'll just let that guy go a little bit. For some TV magic, we have oysters done, so I'm just going to turn this guy back on. So once we sweat out our shallots, we're going to add some garlic. You could use fresh dehydrated garlic powder. I like fresh in this one. So once these guys are all soft, we are going to season this one in stages. So I always season my base, I'll season my main, and then once I taste it, see if at the end, once the cheese and everything's in, except Parmesan is going to be fairly salty, we'll see if it needs any more salt. So once those are going, we're going to deglaze that pan with a little bit of white wine. And we're going to let that wine cook out just for a couple minutes, because if we don't cook it enough, it's going to taste it'll be very acidic, and all you'll taste is wine and not the flavor of the wine. So we'll want to let him boil just for a tick. And then for spinach, you could use fresh spinach, totally fine. Just we all know what happens when we cook a whole bag of spinach and then all of a sudden there's no spinach, because it's gone. Fresh, the frozen spinach is a really good option. Plus, if you just have it in your freezer for smoothies or what have you, the frozen spinach is really great. So give it a little bit of a squeeze out to get that excess moisture out. But I would throw in my spinach. And then once the spinach is in, we're going to grab our local cream. And then as creamy or cheesy as you like that is how you make that. So I would let that reduce just a little bit, probably about 10 minutes, so the cream gets a little bit thicker. And then at the end, we'd give that a taste, see if it needs more seasoning, just because this cheese is going to be really sharp. So we would let that reduce, and then we have just shredded mozzarella and Parmesan. At the end, you could get like the fresh like Parmigiano Reggiano, and do like a little fresh grating over the top. But just like a store-bought regular Parm cheese is perfectly fine. So once that's all in there, good and hot, you could even just use this as a side dish for Christmas as well. So once that's all hot, oysters, we would just take a good helping of cream spinach. Scoop that guy on your oysters. And then a little bit of that stuffing or dressing flavored panko that we made with that savory and poultry seasoning. And once that's done, you would just throw that straight into the oven under the broiler, or if you turn your oven up to about 500 degrees for about 5-6 minutes, just until that panko's nice and brown. And then when they're done, they're beautiful, brown, cheesy, delicious oysters. And that's what I will 100% be eating for Christmas. You guys are invited. You want to go? And yeah, so samples for everybody who wants them.